and welcome to the celebrations of the Reflections program. So just to give a background again, this program that we have been doing online for the past 1 year, it's all about sharing of stories or real life experiences by various speakers and how those stories have inspired them, brought a turning point in their lives. And this was just a thought that came, more than a year ago. And we thought, okay, let's start a program and see how it goes. And it's so wonderful to see that it's already been a year and everyone's shared positive feedback about it and how they enjoy it. And we thought we'll have a little celebration to, share that happiness together. So that was the intent of having this workshop today. So welcome for joining today. And we'll have a few different segments and we ourselves will do some reflections, go through some of our stories and dig out some inspirations that we have had in our life. So I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time. So welcome once again.
So hello and welcome everybody, especially Meenakshi. You're very special today. I would really just like to start by just congratulating Sister Lata and Sister Fitri on holding this program for the last year or so. And I know how many people have been quite touched because their whole idea right from the beginning was for people to tell their stories. And if you look at the media today, and I've had a lot to do with various media organizations and people in online, television, radio, the thing they always say is people love to hear about people. People love to hear stories. And there's been magnificent stories and that have been shared. But what I feel is there's sort of two layers of stories. There's the stories where you tell what you're doing, where you've been, who you met. The external story. And that is that's an interesting story. But I think what people really love is as you're telling that internal story, you also reconnect with your inner story, what you're learning, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. Because actually that's the real life, isn't it? The real life is what's happening inside. And as we go about our work, our family life, there's this constant learning and often reacting, sometimes sadness, sometimes hurt. But in a way, this is the spiritual journey, to observe that and learn from it and apply spiritual principles so that I learn from my inner story and not just keep taking sorrow and feeling hurt and so on. And sometimes stories are incredibly impactful. And I remember once I was in the headquarters of the Brahma Kumaris in India, and I was asked to teach a meditation course to a man called Lord David Ennals. He's from the House of Lords in London. Very fascinating man. And one morning I reached his place at 6:30 in the morning. The sunrise was coming up in Mount Abu. It was beautiful. And we sat on this little grassy hill watching the sunrise. And he actually was one of the great pacifists in the world during the last century. And he was one of the founding members of the United Nations, the League of Nations, an incredible life. He was the man who brought the Dalai Lama really into the world from really his small place in Tibet and India. Extraordinary man. And I asked him about his life and he told me the most incredible story. And what it taught me was how life's events, if you learn from them, they can change your course completely. And what he said, that when he was 18 years old, he was trained in the English army in the Second World War. He was just 18, straight out of school. And he was trained a few days in parachuting and he was dropped into France somewhere near the end of the Second World War. And he said it was the middle of the night and he's with a whole lot of young Englishmen who are the same age as him. And he said they were given a mission, and he said they would crawl on their stomachs and they get to those little stone walls. If you know France, old France, it has these little fitted stone, not with cement, but actually fitted stone walls. They're common throughout Europe. And he said, when we get to the stone wall, we'd look over if there's anyone and then keep going. And he said, we did this for a few hours. And I got to a stone wall, he said, and he looked up and right behind it was a German. And the German shot him and shot off his shoulder. Even when I was talking to him, his whole shoulder was, and he lay there and he said it was just sunrise. And he said, here I am bleeding with a shot shoulder. And he thought, if I move, he will come around and kill me and finish me off. So he's just lying there trying to be still. And after a while, the German did come around the wall to see what had happened. And, you know, the way David told the story, he said the German was the same age as him. And he was describing how he didn't want to be there, just like David in a sense. And this young German, who was 18 or 19 years old too, was so disturbed, he had shot somebody, that David said he was worse than me. I was the one who was shot, and yet he was more disturbed that I'd killed, you know, he thought he maybe killed me. And he was in such a state of anxiety and distress. And they talked. Until this day, I don't even remember whether the German understood English or he understood German. But they talked, and he realized this man was just a young man like him. He wasn't the enemy. He wanted to have a career. He had a family, brothers and sisters. And he said it was in that moment that he realized the absolute futility of war, the complete futility of war. And he spent his whole life working against war, in a sense. He was one of the great pacifists of really the last century. And he fought for so many causes, and he was in the House of Lords and the House of Commons, the United Nations, and an extraordinary man. He helped the poor and underprivileged all over the world. But his story, as he said, I was just a young man, but that experience completely changed my life. And he became a great friend of the Brahma Kumaris. And when we did the Million Minutes of Peace, which was a huge project worldwide in the International Year of Peace in 1986, he was like the front runner, and he got world leaders involved. You know, Margaret Thatcher in England, most of the world leaders, it was him who got them involved. But I just sharing that story, just how powerful stories are. And we all have a story to tell. But I really think that the real story is what I'm learning inside, what life throws up in front of me and how I manage it. And I think often we just fall down and get disturbed and upset by the challenges. But spirituality is actually having truth, understanding who I am, having a connection with God, understanding the law of karma and putting a context to everything that happens, and, you know, having that resilience to deal with all the inner stuff that comes up when situations happen, so that I can become stronger. So I think Reflections has been wonderful like that, for people to tell their stories, their own learnings. And I think all of us have so many learnings in that way. So I really hope it continues for another year, and or two or three or four. And maybe any of you who are listening, you know, I hope that you have really enjoyed this series. And I know that many people have. And once again, I just love to say how much I've appreciated the effort and that Sister Lata and Sister Fitri have put in. It's really been wonderful. So congratulations to both of them, and congratulations to all of you. So thank you.
This story is for those people who are not satisfied with their life and consider others to be happier than them. To understand this story, watch till the end. Once upon a time, a raven was very unhappy with his life. One day he started crying while sitting on a branch of a tree. A monk was sitting on the tree. Just then a drop of the raven's tears fell on the monk's cheek. The monk raised his head and saw that a raven was crying. The monk asked him, "What's the matter, my friend? Why are you crying?" The raven said, "O wise one, I am very upset with my life. No one loves me, people shoo me away in disgrace. No one gives me anything to eat, everyone hates me. Death is better than such a life." Hearing the raven's word, monk's heart was filled with compassion. He said to the raven, "My friend, we should learn to be happy in whatever condition we are in." But the raven did not understand the wisdom of the monk and kept on crying. Then the monk said, "Don't be upset, tell me, what do you want to be? I can make you that with my mantra." Raven became happy and said, "Oh blessed one, if you want to do me a favor, then please make me a swan." The monk said, "Okay, I will make you a swan. But first, go to Swan and ask him whether he is happy with his life or not. You go and find out, till then I wait for you here." Raven happily flew away to meet Swan. He saw a swan swimming in a pond. He went to Swan and said, "How beautiful you are as white as milk. Everyone loves you, you must be the happiest bird in the world." Swan said to the raven with a sad heart, "No, my friend, I am not happy. There are so many beautiful colors in the world. But I don't have any color, white is a nothing color. I think parrot must be the happiest bird in the world. He is so colorful." Hearing this, the raven flew away from there and reached the parrot. He said to parrot, "Oh parrot, you are so colorful and beautiful. You must be the happiest bird in the world." The parrot said to the raven with a sad heart, "No, my friend, I am not happy. You see, people keep parrots in a cage. I am always afraid that someone may hold me and lock me in a cage. I think the peacock is the happiest bird in this world. He is also much more colorful than me." Hearing this, the raven flew around looking for a peacock. After searching for a long time, he finally got a peacock which was in a cage in a zoo. He saw that hundreds of people had gathered to see him. After the people left, the raven approached the peacock and said, "Dear peacock, you are so beautiful. Every day thousands of people come to see you. And look at me, when people see me, they immediately shoo me away. I think you must be the happiest bird on the planet." The peacock replied sadly. He said, "I always thought that I was the most beautiful and happy bird on the planet. But because of my beauty, I am entrapped in this zoo. When people pluck my colorful feathers to make decorative things, it hurts me a lot." The peacock took a deep sigh and said, "I am not happy, my friend." The raven was surprised to hear this from the peacock. He asked him, "If you are not happy, then whom do you think is the happiest bird in the world?" The peacock said, "I have examined the zoo very carefully, and I have realized that you, the raven, are the only bird not kept in the cage. People don't try to catch you and entrap you in the cages. So for the past few days, I have been thinking that If I were a raven, I could happily roam everywhere and I would be free. Hearing this, the raven flew away from there. And today, for the first time, he was feeling happy to be a raven. He came back to that sage and said, "O wise one, I do not want to be anything else. I am fine what I am." If you see our lives, we will find that this is our problem too. We make necessary comparison with others and then become sad and curse ourselves. We don't tell you what we have, and this all leads to vicious cycles of unhappiness. You should learn to be happy in what you have instead of looking at what you don't have. There will always be someone who will have more or less than you have. If you keep comparing yourself to others, you will never be able to be happy. A person who is satisfied with what he or she has is the happiest person in the world.
Let us now turn inwards and awaken the original quality of happiness, of joy within the self. Sitting quietly with one thought, I focus my attention on the soul. I, the eternal being, the being of peace. in this awareness of peace, I move beyond the limits of my physical body and in this state of peace, I begin my journey. I dive below the surface of the waves to discover the treasures within. On the surface are the memories of the immediate experiences of the past. But patiently, I decide for a while not to ponder over these, not to spend my valuable moments of silence contemplating the memories of sorrow, but to see what there is further down, deeper within. The waves stay up above, and the silence of my own inner being draws me towards itself. And as I come to the core of my being, I see that here, at the very heart of my being, there is beauty, there is love. And I can feel happiness emerging from deep inside. I begin to touch the treasure of joy, knowing that this is my eternal state. I maintain this inner awareness of happiness. Om Shanti.